Hi, I'm Cheryl Leach. In this problem, we're asked to solve a trigonometric equation. Tangent squared theta minus tangent theta equals 0. And we're looking for answers between 0 and 2 pi. All right, so how do we solve a trigonometric equation? Well, there are a couple of different techniques you can use. The first thing I want to look for is you may have some trig identities that will be helpful. Another thing to look for would be to use some of your algebra techniques that you've studied long ago. Well, let's take a look at this particular problem. As I look at it, I know it's a trig equation, but it looks a little like a quadratic equation as well, because I have an expression that's squared minus that same expression and it equals 0. So I think that the tactic that I'm going to use is to think about how do I solve quadratic equations. Well, if I'm lucky in a quadratic equation, I can factor, and that's exactly what's going to happen here. I can take tangent squared minus tangent theta and factor out a tangent. So the tangent of theta times the quantity tangent theta minus 1 is going to equal 0. Now I have two pieces that are multiplied together that equal 0. So one of them has to be 0. So either the tangent of theta equals 0 or tangent theta minus 1 equals 0. So I've gone from one complicated equation to two simpler equations. Now let's see if I can solve the two simpler equations. Well, the first one is all ready to go for me. I just need to ask myself, what do I take the tangent of to get 0? Well, if you think about your special angles, that's going to happen when theta is 0, pi, and 2 pi. Now, it's going to happen in a lot of other places as well, 3 pi, 4 pi, 5 pi, and so on. But if I'm restricting my answers between 0 and 2 pi, these are the only answers that fit that restriction. Okay, let's take a look at the second piece now. This one requires just a little bit more work. I have the tangent of theta minus 1 equals 0. So that means that the tangent of theta has to equal 1. And again, this is going to be one of my special angles. What do you take the tangent of to get 1? Well, one possible answer is pi over 4. Now remember, what quadrants is the tangent positive in? It's positive in the first quadrant, but also the third quadrant. So I'd like to find an angle that's in the third quadrant whose reference angle is pi over 4. That's going to be the angle 5 pi over 4. And again, there are a lot of other answers to this question, when is the tangent of theta equal to 1? But if I'm only looking between 0 and 2 pi, these are the only two that fit that criteria. So now let's use a spreadsheet or maybe a graphing utility to verify our answers. Well, to begin with, we're going to enter two functions into our graphing utility. We're going to enter the left-hand side of that equation as my first function, and the right-hand side as my second function. So we'll go ahead and set y equal to the tangent squared of x minus the tangent of x. Now, notice I didn't say the tangent of theta. Most graphing utilities are going to use the variable x. That's really just a renaming of the variable, so that's okay. All right. For my second equation, I'm going to enter the right-hand side, which is simply a 0 this time. Okay, now I'm going to use the table feature on my calculator. So I'm going to go ahead and set up a table, and in that table, for my x values, I'm going to enter, to start with, why don't we just use the special angles that are in the first quadrant. So we'll begin by entering 0, pi divided by 6, pi divided by 4, pi divided by 3, and pi divided by 2. Now what we're looking for is we're looking for the columns that represent the left-hand function and the column that represents that equation on the right-hand side to be exactly the same. So when do the numbers match up? Well, it turns out if you look in this first quadrant, they match up when my input was 0 and also when it was pi over 4. Okay, well, I only entered values that were in my first quadrant, and I'm thinking I've got answers in other quadrants. So let's go ahead and try a few more angles to plug in. You don't necessarily have to plug every special angle in, but make sure you at least hit these values that I think are my solution. So let's try 3 pi over 4, and we'll try pi, and how about 5 pi over 4, and 3 pi over 2, and 7 pi over 4, and 2 pi. And again, we're looking for the two columns, the columns that represent the left and the right-hand side of my equation, to give me the same number. Okay? And if you look through your list, you'll notice that they're the same at pi, at 2 pi, and at 5 pi over 4. One little warning though, your graphing calculator often uses a numerical technique to evaluate equations. So sometimes you won't get exactly a 0. It'll look like 1, e minus 13 as an example, which means 10 to the minus 13th power. Well, that's really 0. Okay? It's just a very, very tiny number, and we get that result because our calculator was doing approximation techniques instead of the exact evaluation. I hope that was helpful. Thanks.